Have you ever done something that made people look at you and think, that's kind of weird? Maybe you talk to yourself while thinking. Maybe your mind keeps jumping from one idea to another. Maybe you notice things no one else seems to care about and then spend hours thinking about them. And somewhere in those moments, a quiet thought appears. Why am I like this? Most people assume intelligence looks a certain way. Organized, focused, confident, clear. But real intelligence often looks very different. It can look messy, it can feel confusing, and sometimes it can even feel like a problem instead of a strength. Because the truth is, a highly active mind doesn't always feel peaceful. It questions more, it doubts more, it notices more, and that more can feel overwhelming. But what if these unusual patterns aren't flaws? What if they're clues? Clues about how your brain actually works. Let's start with something simple. Have you ever caught yourself talking to yourself? Not just thinking, but actually whispering your thoughts out loud. Maybe when you're solving a problem, or trying to remember something, or replaying a conversation in your head. Most people feel embarrassed about this. They think it's strange. But what's really happening is something powerful. Your brain is trying to organize information. When thoughts stay inside, they're abstract, but when you say them out loud, they become clearer. It's like turning invisible ideas into something you can see. And people with deeper thinking patterns often need this, because their thoughts aren't simple. They're layered, complex, and constantly moving. Now think about this. Why do you overthink? Why does your mind replay situations again and again? Why do you imagine outcomes that haven't even happened yet? It feels like a weakness, right? Like your brain just won't stop. But overthinking usually comes from one thing. Your brain sees too many possibilities. Instead of one simple answer, it sees 10. Instead of one explanation, it sees multiple meanings. And that creates depth. You don't just experience life, you analyze it. But here's the problem. A mind that sees too much can also feel too much. That's why overthinking often turns into stress. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is running without direction. Now let's talk about something that confuses a lot of people. Getting bored easily. You start something and quickly lose interest. You try to focus, but your mind drifts. You feel like you need something more, something deeper. It can make you feel lazy, like you lack discipline, but that's not always the case. Sometimes your brain just isn't stimulated. It's like giving a powerful engine nothing to do. Of course it won't stay engaged. It needs challenge, it needs curiosity, it needs something that actually makes it think. And when it doesn't get that, it looks for something else. Now here's something even more interesting. Have you ever felt like you understand people even when they don't say much? You notice small changes in tone. You pick up on subtle expressions. You sense when something feels off. This is sensitivity, and most people see it as a weakness. They think being sensitive means being fragile, but in reality, it means being aware. Your brain is constantly reading information, not just words, but emotions, not just actions, but intentions. And that level of awareness gives you an advantage. You see things others miss. But it also comes with a cost, because when you feel more, you also get overwhelmed more easily. Now think about this. Do you ever feel confident and doubtful at the same time? Like part of you believes in yourself, but another part keeps questioning everything. You wonder if you're right, if you're good enough, if you're missing something. This inner conflict can feel exhausting, but it comes from awareness. The more you understand, the more you realize how much you don't know. And that creates doubt. Not because you're incapable, but because you see complexity. And that's something most people avoid. Now let's go deeper. Have you ever felt completely comfortable being alone? Not lonely, but actually at peace. You enjoy your own thoughts, your own space, your own world. While others constantly seek distraction, you can sit in silence and think. This is not isolation. This is mental independence. Your brain doesn't rely on constant external input.
it can generate its own stimulation. And that's where many ideas are born, in quiet moments, in deep thinking, in stillness. But here's something most people don't realize. A mind like this can also become its own trap. Because when you spend too much time inside your head, you can lose balance. You start overanalyzing everything. You create problems that don't exist. You get stuck in loops of thought. That's why awareness is important, not to stop thinking, but to guide it. Now here's a trait that often looks like a flaw: messiness. Your environment might not be perfectly organized. Your thoughts might feel scattered. Your process might look chaotic to others. But inside that chaos, there's a pattern. Your brain is connecting ideas in its own way, not in straight lines, but in webs. And sometimes that kind of thinking leads to creativity, because you're not limited by structure. You explore, you experiment, you connect things that don't seem related, and that's where new ideas come from. Now here's something even more interesting. Have you ever noticed that you question things others accept easily? Rules, beliefs, opinions. You don't just follow them, you analyze them. You ask why. And sometimes that makes you feel different, like you don't fit into the usual way of thinking. But that's exactly what creates originality. Because you're not just consuming information, you're processing it, breaking it apart, rebuilding it in your own way. And that's a powerful ability. But again, it comes with a challenge. Because when you question everything, you can also struggle to feel certain about anything. Now think about this. Have you ever had moments where your mind just won't stop? Even when you're tired, even when you want peace, your thoughts keep running, jumping from one idea to another. This is mental activity. Your brain is constantly searching, connecting, exploring. But without control, it turns into noise. And that's where most people struggle, not because they think too much, but because they don't know how to manage their thinking. So here's the real insight. None of these traits are good or bad on their own. They're tools. And like any tool, they can either help you or hurt you. Overthinking can become anxiety, or it can become deep understanding. Sensitivity can become overwhelm, or it can become emotional intelligence. Curiosity can become distraction, or it can become creativity. Solitude can become isolation, or it can become clarity. It all depends on how you use it. And that's where most people go wrong. They try to eliminate these traits. They try to become normal, less emotional, less thoughtful, less aware. But in doing that, they lose what makes their mind unique. Instead of eliminating these patterns, you need to understand them, work with them, guide them. If your mind overthinks, give it direction. Focus it on solving problems instead of creating them. If you get bored easily, challenge yourself with meaningful goals. If you're sensitive, learn to protect your energy instead of shutting down. If you enjoy being alone, use that time to build ideas, not escape reality. If your thoughts feel chaotic, start organizing them in a way that works for you. Because once you understand your mind, everything changes. You stop fighting yourself, you stop feeling broken, and you start realizing something important. You were never the problem. You just didn't understand how your mind works. And here's the final truth. Being different doesn't automatically mean being a genius, but many intelligent minds feel different because they don't fit into simple patterns. They think in depth, they feel in layers, they question what others accept, and that creates a life that feels intense, but also meaningful. So instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" start asking, "How can I use this?" Because your mind is not something to fix, it's something to understand. And once you do, what once felt like confusion starts to feel like clarity. What once felt like weakness starts to feel like strength. And what once felt like being lost starts to feel like you were just thinking in a way the world hasn't fully understood yet.